Once again, thank you, Dr. Hanadi. Is Dr. Hanadi not here? I can't believe it. Maybe not. But otherwise, thank you, Beverly, for hosting this marathon of a conference once again, and Professor Butler as well. We are going to take the opportunity in this session to talk about show demos, some very practical examples of use of AI. I'm going to show one simple example for how we have implemented an AI solution. Danielle is going to show another part of it. And then we're going to have a conversation also with Hilton and how these technologies has an impact on the ground, in particular with the focus on South Africa. But really, I think many of these things applies to the world overall. So with that, let us get going. I'm going to jump into our platform to do this demo, and just introduce by saying that one of the things that AI is obviously very good at is writing narratives, and we're going to see examples of that later. But it's also really good at making lists and action plans, of course. And our platform is a platform where clients can go in and make growth plans, a little more action-focused plans than business plans. So clients can log in, or advisors can log in. And when they go to a growth plan, one of the things they can do is they can try to figure out what matters most. And they will do that by making a 360 assessment on the platform. So maybe someone, I'll just pick an example here, have made an assessment and found out how they are doing in different areas of business. The growth wheel is just a checklist of things that is already known in business. All businesses needs to have an attractive business concept. That's the yellow area. It's not enough to have a great idea. They also need to have an organization behind it. So in the red area, we work with making a stronger organization. Revenue can only come from clients. So all advisors will work with clients on improving customer relations through networking, marketing, sales, communication, and branding. And then there's one last challenge for a business, which is to make money. The growth wheel is looking at these areas, and advisors using growth wheel will do what all advisors do, whether they use growth wheel or not. They'll try to figure out what is it we need to focus on so we can define the scope of work. And for example, in this particular case, someone may have made a screening and select some focus area. And the advisor may realize that they need to focus on sales, but also that they need to recruit someone. Sometimes problems needs to be reframed. Sometimes there are root causes, and that might be a starting point for a conversation. But now what? Now you may have a business who needs to focus on recruiting. And what we like to do in Growth Wheel is to make a plan of the ambitions and go in and create a list of ambitions. And ambitions go by many names for entrepreneurs. They can be ambitions, they can be milestones, targets, objectives, goals, aims, visions, or dreams. And they're really pretty much the same. There's something you would like in the future, but we know that entrepreneurs use different words. You can really pick any one you want. If in doubt, why not call it an ambition? And then once you know that you want to focus on employees, we want to make a SMART goal. So maybe a very practical goal would be to, hire new key account manager, or let's say a sales assistant, maybe. That's a simple title for this goal. And with Growth Wheel, you can indicate what it's about. This has to do with organization. This has to do with hiring new employees. You can put a date on it, so it's time bound. There can be someone responsible on the team. It can have a status, red, yellow, or green. Maybe it's red because you're starting. And because it's SMART goals, you want to add a measurement method. How do you know if you're successful in reaching this goal, which might be that there's a signed, employee contract or something like that. And there could be a more specific description about what should the sales assistant be doing. For example, focus on inbound sales or something like that. Now, if an advisor simply gives a client this task, they may find that nothing happens. It doesn't really get executed, unless, of course, it's a mature client who's used to recruiting. But if it's a small startup that's not used to recruiting, it makes sense that you're going to go hire someone. But to really, for advisors to be efficient, they need to break down these goals in very practical action plans. So for sure, on this platform and other platforms, you can start making an action plan and adding decisions and actions. The challenge is that advisors don't have time for that. So they will send the client off and say, okay, we need to hire a new sales assistant. Maybe we have another ambition to get a loan. We need to maybe move into new facilities or do a new market entry. But we really need to break things down. So what we have done is we have an API for OpenAI, so you can generate an action plan, as we can see now. So now we will call the OpenAI, provide the information, and it will generate an action plan with 7 steps. We ask for only 7. So yeah, it will not surprisingly say develop a new job description, identify skills needed, create a recruitment plan, post the job openings, conduct interviews, select the offer employment contract, and onboard and train the new sales assistant. And it will even put it on a 36-9-day timeline. This one came through all the 30 days because I told it we want to recruit before November, and had a set a different time horizon, it will be different. If I'm not happy with the result, I can generate an additional 7 items and see if something new comes up. And as we know, if some of the same things come up, the AI starts repeating itself when it doesn't really have any new ideas. So it comes up with additional ones, and advisors can then decide which of these will they share with clients. So again, the advisor is the filter. The AI only knows so much, and we need the advisor's judgment. As I spoke about in the previous session, the advisor might be more important than ever in the age of AI. And in this way, we can use AI either directly in the IA platform, or in this case, on a platform like the Growthfield CRM, Growthfield Online, and create these action plans that advisors don't have time for. There's not really anything new here. This is not thinking out of the box. It's just doing the writing up of the things that advisors know already. That being said, as we all know, from time to time, there's a good idea that slips through. So this is one way that advisors can use the AI. Now, this is a way where we're not creating a narrative. This is a way where we simply use the AI to generate action plans. More importantly, for many economic development organizations, and maybe some of those who are here in the audience today, are center managers or maybe government representatives or someone in charge of an ecosystem. You want to make sure that as clients achieve their ambitions, their goals, their milestones of hiring, getting funding, getting grants, entering new markets, inventing new business models, implementing new IT, and so on, that those metrics are tracked. And not only do you want to track the actual execution, you want to attract the lagging indicators of more revenue, more investments made, more jobs created, and so on. And you may want to track all this information for different demographics. You may work with different demographics in your country. In some countries, they track whether services are offered for minorities. They track whether it's offered for youth. They track how many businesses are women-owned. They may track if someone has a certain military status, and many other demographics. So any system that is tracking progress also needs a mechanism to report this. And there are lots of such systems out there that can collect these data. My colleague Daniela is going to show you one implementation that we have made. And we're going to start with just looking at the kind of metrics that we have. And then more interestingly for this conference, we're going to see how AI can now analyze these data and actually produce a narrative so that anyone who might be reporting to grants, to government, to management, to boards, can have the AI look at the quantitative data and actually generate a narrative, thereby also saving the management a lot of time in documenting results of their program. So Daniela, I'm going to hand it over to you to just show our Growthfield impact reporting.
Thank you, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela from Growthfield, and I'm just going to show you our latest addition to our system, which is how to visualize all the data that David was just talking about. So it's a great system where you can track this, but it's also great to have something that supports how to see this data and how to analyze it. And that's what I'm about to present you today. we have this new technology that we call impact reporting, which is basically a live interactive dashboard that our clients get access to with our system. You see a cover page because the systems allows you to download this as a PDF as well. So it's easy to share with stakeholders or with clients or colleagues as well. But I will show you a little bit more about that in a bit. For now, I'm just going to drill down on the different metrics that we track in our system and how are they visible in our reports. We have here a quick overview of the different metrics that we track. Of course, for our US clients, we got some SBA metrics, but our other standard business metrics like the counseling, how much time they're spending with clients, the business and client demographics information, any trainings information as well. It's being covered here, just in easy access to get access to the pages. I'm going to start off with different dashboards that we can have on this technology. So if you have goals that your center tracks, or even at the advisor level, you could see how are you doing in that goal. It turns green as you reach it. You see it red if you're a little bit behind it. You get your totals. The system allows you to just drill down on different filters like city, like any demographic, states, county, women ownership, or any other criteria that you might need to look at. And of course, you are able also to select any time period that you want to see. Either is it the whole fiscal year, or maybe you just want to check a quarter or the past month to make verification of your performances. We also have a more in-depth reporting capabilities where you'll be able to see further metrics that your team's working on. You see here, this is just an interactive dashboard that it's real time, so it gets updated as soon as information is entered in our system. You will see these numbers be automatically updated, and we have numerous of metrics that can be customized or tailored to the different grants or reporting needs from our clients. This is just a quick example of how that looks. And I'm just going to take now sometimes to show you a little bit more in detail the different metrics that we can track and how is that visible in our system. So any demographic, as David was mentioning, if you track also military status or their geographic zone, you're able to see this in charts or graphics. Let's say that you want to see the clients that you've been working with or that your team member have been working with. You get a breakdown by month, and you also get a breakdown by your team member. So in this case, for example, if I want just to quickly here see which are the clients that David has been working with and when David had these activities with them, as it is an interactive dashboard, you will be able to click on it and interact with it. As soon as I click David's name, the tables and the graphics are automatically updated with the data just for David. So I can see that he just met a few clients in the past month, but May and April were his highest activity month. The system also, I'm gonna quickly refresh here. The system also enables you to drill down the tables to different specifics. So for example, if I wanted to see when was it that David had those sessions with the clients, I can even drill down to the weeks or to the days of the month. And if I just want to see 1 month, I just need to click it, and then I'm gonna see which days of those months he met with his clients. So again, as you needed, the system allows you to drill down on the data, export it on different formats. So let's say you want to export these clients on a CSV format, you will be able to do that as well. Now, I'm just going to show you a little bit more about the business demographics. You got to see, what's the industry that you're working with clients. If you need to just get an overview of where your clients are located, you got these tables that, again, you can drill down to any city and even to the zip code level. So if you got that information in the system, you will be able to see it here. And we have also included some geomaps where you can visually locate your clients in the map, and then you will be able to interact with it. So maybe I want to see who are these 5 clients that I have here in Brooklyn. And there you got a client list on the right of those clients are there. I'm just gonna jump off to the counseling metrics. So you want to see how many sessions and how much time you're spending with clients. We even included some averages, so it's easy for advisors not only to track their performance, but also make decisions based on how they're doing, what's the topic, the most popular topic that they're discussing with clients. This just gives them insights on decision-making for their internal goals. We also have the same for training. So you want to see how much time, how many participants. This information is available in the system. And I just wanted to show you that. You can see the breakdown of women and disabled community, Asians, by race, by ethnicity. So that's pretty neat. As I mentioned before, you're also able to filter it out. And then lastly, just before I hand it over back to David, just wanted to show also that it even supports scheduling delivery. So I can say here, you know what, send a monthly report to David so he can get these numbers. You can even set up a weekly scheduling, so you get it every Monday. Maybe you share it with your team members so they can see this data. And because it's a real-time dashboard, every week is going to get updated and up to date with the data that's being entered in the CRM. You're muted, David. Yeah.
Beginner's mistake. So yes, thank you very much, Daniela. So this is very nice. We can get all kinds of data, and organizations can report to their stakeholders what they need data in real time and so on. But the missing piece so far has been now to analyze and describe these data. Because most of the organizations that we work with, and I'm sure amongst the audience, there's many people who are spending a vast amount of time writing up reports to grants, again, government, board, all kinds of stakeholders that are there, maybe even to the advisors in the organization who need feedback. And sometimes these are not made just because it's too time consuming. So I'd like you to move on, Daniela, and just show how AI can take these data and generate different kinds of narratives that can support this very quantitative and, of course, visual information, which is great. So we can have the best of both worlds.
Of course, David. And it's great to have AI, as David mentioned. It is just specialized on narrative. So now that we have not only the data in the CRM, we have a way to visualize the data with this reporting impact visuals. We also can have the support of AI to get a narrative and to further describe what we're seeing in these numbers. And just to give you a few examples here, you can have nice introductory or summary page or a cover letter with what your reporting is based on the goals that you have determined or the metrics that you have determined that you're tracking. In this case, we just focus on the main goals tracked by this center specifically. You can also have an executive summary written out. We know that some grants or other entities, they require this like written narrative of how the performance was achieved, or what can be improved for the next fiscal cycle, what were those top numbers that their grant helped to achieve. So based on what's already entered in the system, based on what you are currently seeing on the same report, the AI can help you to further describe an executive narrative summary that will be easily, as I mentioned, easy to download, share on a PDF format as well. Another option can be just pulling tables out of the data that you have, mixed with some insights or feedback for these metrics. So just a performance metric summary where you can see the overall metrics that your center is tracking, what were those key milestones that you achieved, and what are some insights behind the work that your team is doing to get those goals met. Of course, as AI, this is just our suggestions based on the data entered. It does require just the advisor or the center manager reviewing and making sure that the text is accurate. But if you want to take it just a step further, you can also ask for actionable recommendations. So based on the historic metrics that you have and your projections for your next goals, you can see what are those steps that you can make or implement in your team to help improve those metrics, either whether it is continuing improving the training from your team or maybe utilizing further technologies like AI on your daily practice, creating action plans with your clients to make them met their goals, or any other area of improvement that based on your historic track, the AI can easily identify patterns and help you describe it in an actionable recommendation that you can share with it. As David mentioned, this can just be easily pull everything on a nice report to be shared. And I'm just to show you some examples, you're able to select which pages you want to download. So that's why we include a nice cover page. If you have these pages for AI, you can include your executive summary along with just the key metrics that you want to share with anyone that needs this. Back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Daniela. So the two examples we've seen now here is different in the way that, of course, the first one takes and just generates a list, in that case, an action plan, and the second one takes data and turn them into a narrative. What both have in common, I think that's the lesson for this, is that it's all about, of course, how we engineer the prompts. So to produce a qualified action plan, we need to take elements from the ambition, the timeline, we need to define the categories, we need to make the goals smart, and the more information that we provide, the better the action plan is. And also, in the case when we want to take quantitative data and want to turn them into a narrative, the different examples that Daniela showed, right, is how we need to, of course, make sure we prompt the AI with the kind of output we want. There needs to be, you know, for each organization, someone who really considers what is the value that stakeholders want to see. So, for example, it can include suggestions, it can include cover pages, it can highlight whatever it needs to be from the data. So those were some examples that we had to share where we have come at this point with our technology. But now, Hilton, I want to bring you on. We have about 10-15 minutes left before we hand it over to the next speaker, Paul. Look forward to that. And I want to try now to bring this into a practical context. And Hilton, you have for very many years been an active player in the ecosystem in South Africa. You know very many different players, in fact, across the continent, of course. So I'd like to speak to, you know, what do you think in these technologies? What's the practical use of them, the practical implications? What does this mean for the entrepreneurs? What does it mean for the entrepreneurship centers? What does it mean for government stakeholders in the context that you are in the South African and the wider African ecosystem?
Hello, everyone. I think it's perhaps a global question, David. We've seen over the last 30-odd years that business advisors became highly paid administrators. They constantly had to write and think. And what they really are impactful on is when they spend quality time and have direct conversations with their business owners. And you know, what Daniela showed is that, you know, that makes a business advisor in any context, in any part of the world, more efficient and more effective. In fact, he does what he was contracted to do. And that is to provide business advisory, you know, hold the hand of the business advisor. I think from the client perspective, you know, we have a collaborative platform. So the business advisors, the mentors, the coaches, the accountants, the legal guys, together with the entrepreneurship team, right? Be it the operators and their staff, they use Growthfield to do their daily growth planning. And if you think about ourselves, we have very little time to also just write, right? And so AI has made us 400%, you know, more efficient. You know, there was a time when all of us walked to the river and on our way, you know, get some water. chop down some tree, start a fire, and cook some water, get some coffee beans, roast it the old way, and then maybe by the end of the day, you'll have a cup of coffee. Today, you just press a button and you have a cappuccino. And I think in our sector, people generally, and business advisors, they're always so stuck in the way they've been doing things and expecting different results. Today, they have coffee machines where they press and they offer you a cappuccino. And I think AI, in particular, what we've seen in South Africa and across Africa in the 24 markets that we cover, is that business advisors and clients appreciate, this ability to where they have this tunnel vision. The business advisor helps them, but AI makes it a lot wider. And so it's easier just to make a decision, choose what you like, and then assign it to someone and move on. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
Right. So Hilton, if this technology is so powerful and have so many benefits, what do you think is the barriers for implementing it? And again, you can think of it both from the entrepreneur who doesn't know very much about AI, or you can look at it maybe from the perspectives of governments who could reap massive benefits maybe from having this technology be available to the advisors that they are funding, with very large amounts of money in all societies around the world, goes to support small business development, right? What seems to be the barrier from your perspective for implementing these technologies?
Well, we always know that, technology is ahead of government and they always catch up, right? And we've seen around the world that you now have dedicated AI or 4IR teams. And so government is catching up. But in the local economic development sector, where people still use spreadsheets, it's a comfort zone, David, and I think the academics here who, would concur that change management is a process. But, several years ago, again, those individuals, didn't have a screen in their car, didn't charge their car at their wall plug. And I think it's in the next decade, as AI, is advancing so quickly. I mean, like, this came out, 2022, 2023? And look where we are at, right? I read this morning that, the Chat GPT, AI, its IQ is at 120 and the average human being is at 100. And so it's already advancing at where we are. And I think we can just leverage the way that we leverage electricity, we leverage, many other things, and we've come through different evolutions. Now, on the issue of the amount of money that we invest on the African continent annually, there's $10 billion being invested in supporting entrepreneurs. And I think it's perhaps too little, but the problem is we don't know what people are doing. So there's every ESO doing its own little thing, and they're all heroic, and we have no clue as government what our real impact and our outputs are. And I think, I think it's something that we see around the world. We have a conversation with some of our partners in UK, and they have great incentives for investors, angel investors, venture capitalists, etc. And there's a fifth generation of family businesses, business owners, or family investment houses, and these guys make investments, but we've not seen multiple unicorns come out of UK. And so again, if entrepreneurs is going to, and particular startups and small businesses, is going to sustain your economy by 85% of jobs that it creates, 60% average of contribution to GDP. If we don't in the numbers, then what are we doing? And so I think, again, we don't have enough time as individuals. Everyone is operating out of a COVID, trauma, anxiety. There's all kinds of things happening around the world. And we need to leverage things that comes to us. And you know, just like in 99 with the you know, with e-commerce boom, if you like, you know, the fear of Y2K, etc., we all accelerated, and it advanced people around the world. And so, you know, what we've seen in the low wealth communities, in rural communities, where people don't speak English, you know, it's their third or fourth or fifth language. AI again helps them to communicate with their advisor at a level. So it becomes almost, you know, that it makes the world flat, right? Because I can express myself very well in Chinese. I can speak, you know, my language or my slang or whatever you want to call it. And somebody else sounds different. And that makes him sound smarter. But I know exactly what my business is all about. And I think here AI becomes the leveler of that as well.
Yeah, hugely empowering. So thanks for bringing here as we round up. Leave it to Paul to continue for bringing it into this perspective of how it really can change the world, not just for government organizations, for entrepreneurship centers, for the advisors and the entrepreneurs, but also really for entrepreneurs everywhere who can so easily use this technology to the benefit of the programs and the funders who can now also demonstrate all the effects from this. Do you have a last comment, Hilton?
Yeah, you know, we've worked with a number of universities or higher education institutions in the country, and you know, you find that you know, a student learn about his career path, and what we want him to do is start a business. And so we've seen that our partners are using, you know, our platform, in particular AI, and the students for business simulations of their research and etc. And I think again, there's an opportunity within the global academic ecosystem that we integrate this into our classroom, and we should not be fearful of that.
Thank you so much, Hilton. Paul, I'm not sure if anybody is hosting us right now. Otherwise, I'm just going to hand over the baton to you. And let's take it from here. You may cover a different topic or a similar topic, but we're very curious to hear what you have to share today.
Great. So I'm just going to try and find my presentation here. And that's great. I think I've got it here. So I'm going to take a bit of a different aspect on AI. It's something which, funny, following on from your speech there, Hilton, I actually started my first AI company in 2003, and I can assure you it wasn't called AI back then. It was a long time ago, and funny company because we grew that company from London, from 3 of us, and grew it eventually to 16 countries, 20 officers in 16 countries. Never had a UK client, which was even funnier, and grew it to about 600 people. And unfortunately for me, we exited about, let me just think, about 2010 or 2012, I think it was, 2010. And I got the news just the other day that it's about to be sold for $1 billion. So I'll be crying in a pint of Guinness sometime very shortly. As I look back and think, why did that happen? But anyway, look, what I'll do, let me crack on. I'm taking a very different aspect. I also look at my career and think, you know, this is what we should tell school kids, that don't go and nail yourself to any maths too early, because mine has pivoted and moved as technology's moved on and along the way. And I'm trying to do my full show webinar. Is this going to work? No, it's not going to work. No, just give me one moment. I'm going to open this back up again. Okay. It's not opening up in view mode right now, is it? Okay, I think is this showing up? Yep. Thumbs up. It's working. Great.
Yep.
Okay. So look, where my big push is on sustainability. And as you mentioned, Hilton, you're from Africa. I mean, what's really annoying me right now is you've got areas of Africa like Zambia and Zimbabwe, which are literally got no energy left, right? Just getting about an hour a day of energy because rivers like the Zambezi are completely empty, completely dry. And this is the impact. The very people in the world who've got the least amount of tolerance are literally really sinking right now. And we have America under our wonderful new President Trump, who immediately says, let's drill, going against exactly what the rest of the world should be doing. They should be leading on this. And I just look at I look at where we're heading, and we are literally going to be boiling our grandchildren like they boil frogs. And it's really horrendous. So I'm a little hard line of these things, but where I'm focusing on is an area where we know we can save huge amounts of energy in buildings going forward. So a lot of what the work we do here is developing new techniques, mainly around occupancy technology, and using that and AI, predictive analysis of what's going to happen, taking into account many factors, how we lower the amount of energy used in the building. So our whole philosophy is you cannot manage what you cannot measure, as we all know. But what we're trying to do now is bring in layers and layers of data extraction that will deliver to a building. And what we're going to want a building to do, we want the building to actually think for itself. In the same way, we wake up and our day goes as it goes. But I always say, if, King Charles wakes up in the morning, his day is probably completely regimented down to every last second is accounted for. We want the buildings to know in advance, this is what's going to happen. And therefore, on that data, this is what should be happening next. All around how you lower the power usage completely. And some of the areas I work on, I'm very clear. I've got some phenomenal professors around me who I work across the UK and elsewhere. And we're working now on things like passive energy harvesting. So we're trying to take radio waves from Wi-Fi, from 2.5, 5, 6, and 7G Wi-Fi, and use those radio waves that are just free in the air to power very, very low-powered IoT devices. Or trickle feed your mobile. It's not going to power your mobile phone, by the way, this sort of energy harvesting we're doing. It's micro levels, but enough to just mean you trickle feed 24 hours a day through the radio waves that are in the air, IoT devices. And that's one area I'm really pushing hard on. And the difference here is when I embed our technology into a major high-rise building, I have to admit that we do use energy. So we have sensors, we've got technology, and that's pulling energy from the grid. What I'm trying to move to is that we move to a position where we deploy a building and literally just the Wi-Fi signals in the building will be delivering the data we need to push through and work where we go. So I can assure you, this isn't going to happen overnight. We've been working 3 years on passive energy harvesting now, but it's really progressed massively. And again, through AI, we'll be able to learn how to develop these antennas better in the future. Now, one of the areas I'm focused on, which is why I'm interested in this session here today, is fire evacuation of high-rise buildings. And we see in Kuwait in the Middle East crazy high levels of fires happening as the temperature of the world increases all the time. So what we do know is that the buildings were not built for this new norm. So we weren't expecting to see buildings having, people coming to work only on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as is the case in many businesses in the UK. And this here illustrates really the issue. This is a type of building where before COVID, you had full occupation 5 days a week. This is the situation now. And what we're doing is looking at that and saying, right, based on this data, now we have to change how this building works going forward. So we install various sensors, we configure access cards with multiple chips and antennas embedded in them that allows us to analyze the data and act immediately on what needs to happen next. And again, this is where the heavy work goes in, is into how we're developing microchips. And I want to be clear, we're not developing microchips like Intel or elsewhere. We're building microchips that do the least amount possible, but the least amount possible with the least possible amount of energy as well. And that's where we're differentiating ourselves. We're almost going backwards. But we know what data we need, and the amount of data we need is tiny for many of these items. We don't need it to wake us up and make us a cup of tea in the morning. It just has to do with tiny amounts of data extraction to our sensors. And again, we work across many areas from face recognition to occupancy technology to car detection systems and many more in the future as well. And if you look at Kuwait alone, Kuwait has 1.5 million people living in high-rise buildings, residential or being employed. They've got more and more risk with climate change. So we see extreme heat, sandstorms, fires. These are all vulnerabilities. And the issue is, and I can tell you from someone who works in the 39th floor of a building, It's not easy to get down all those stairs in a hurry. This is why we need to make sure that we bring safety and control to buildings going forward. And Kuwait has had their issues. They've had big issues here with lots of fires happening. This is the Bank of Kuwait had a headquarters which had a fire recently. But we had a much bigger issue in London recently where we had 72 people die. Nobody in that building should have died. And since then, astonishingly, we've had buildings that have been even worse. Where even 7 years after Grenfell, we've had buildings with the same cladding, with no fire alarm working, and with fire doors locked. And this can all be solved with sensor technology. And this is where we're working very closely now with the insurance company. And this is a carrot and stick situation where if we can bring the insurance companies along with us and say, look, if a building is completely appallingly managed, don't insure it. If it's running correctly and you have sensor technology there, give the occupiers much lower premiums. And therefore, we make a smart building, and we deliver that smart building that saves you money constantly right the way through the equation. And this is to illustrate, it's image here to illustrate the stupidity of where we're going with high-rise buildings and what's happening even here in London, where I have a little bit of influence. This is the tallest ladder we have in the UK, which needs an engine down here with massively wide arms to actually stabilize itself. But then we build buildings 278 meters tall, built so closely together you can barely fit a needle through the two of them. And we're just not learning and thinking about how we go forward as we build these buildings in the future. And these are going to cause us issues long term. One of the biggest crazy things about where we go into sustainability, these buildings here, the glass in these buildings are only guaranteed for 25 years. And I just sit here going, what planet are we living on, guys? We've got to rethink architecture. We've got to start thinking about architecture, how we develop a building through AI, and how we think about how we dismantle that building in 60, 100, 200 years' time, so that the glass can be reused. So all these elements can be actually reused, not just put into a dump and gone forward. So across many areas, we've got to start thinking differently about how we do sustainability. Again, some of the areas we work on is security. We automatically detecting people in place they shouldn't be, delivering insecurity, exactly breaches that happen. Net zero targeting is one of my big things, and again, the safety of buildings going forward. And this is where we see the push now with AI, the technology push to digital transformation and the pull. And we're at a point where we do believe that just a little bit of work and building the right return on investment models, we can actually show, especially in the sector I'm focused on, which is buildings, how you take a dumb building and make that dumb building smart. Doesn't cost you any money, it actually makes you money. And when it's now an asset that's making you money, that's smart, your asset levels go up as well, your asset values go right up as well. And this, sadly, we're in a position now where a lot of buildings that are not too old are literally not going to survive because they will not have been built correctly. The right technology, the right way they're actually constructed will mean they are literally dumped. And I'm trying to get through to the building sector, the architects that think differently about how they build a building. So you're thinking long-term the whole time. And actually the elements used, how they can be reused and repurposed in the future. Now, one of the areas I've been working on very hard over the last sort of years, so this is certainly new for this conference today, is how we take fire systems. So everything from the pumps in the basement to the water tanks in the roof to the sprinkler systems to the handle, everything you can imagine, and bring in IoT technologies so that we're monitoring every element of that building 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we push not only to the maintenance person, but to the insurance sector that this building has got these faults, and this is how well it's doing, this is how well it's not doing. And therefore you insure it based on the data we push to you as an insurer. Now, what we're trying to also bring in is a compliance level that if your building falls below a certain level, that building is no longer insurable. And you actually have to evacuate it, because we were not going to move forward unless the carrot and the stick are used with the insurance sector and the construction sector equally. And a lot of what we're trying to do is move away from man-made systems, where already we're now delivering a 95% a reduction in the personnel needed to manage a building. And that's just huge. And especially now as buildings are used less and less, and there's not as many people in, especially Mondays and Fridays in Europe and UK. I mean, the rest of the world has more common sense and gone back to work as they should have done. But we see this happening more and more. And if you look at the data we can pull now, the risks fall right off a cliff when you have your building thinking for itself and being censored right up to the hills. And again, as I said, the insurance companies, they have that remote look. They're being fed through 24 hours a day, and not only in the occupancy of the building, but how all the systems work. And again, one of the areas we've worked on in the last year is building these digital twins that allow us to even work out from the sensors what is going to happen with a fire. Where is the smoke going to lead to? How do we need to be thinking about, how does the building need to think about how it closes off areas, how it then informs residents or employees in the building what they should do and how they should leave that building going forward. Now, on predictive analysis, what we've done, we took into account a lot of variable data from the actual, what I call the DNA of each floor of a building. So how the companies on that floor actually perform and what the culture is, right up to the weather conditions, to public transport strikes, to bank holidays, and how that affects the occupancy of the building in advance. Now, when we know that in advance, we can then start pushing into the HVAC systems, etc. Tomorrow looks like this, and based on the weather conditions, this is how you perform to alleviate the amount of energy you can actually use in the building. Really, so we're working incredibly hard on new smart lighting systems, taking really simple things which really are just not being done, that I'm not going to win a Nobel Peace Prize for, but in terms of common sense, they're absolutely on the money. And we're trying to get people to start thinking about how, through AI and through predictive analysis, you don't have to think any longer. The building knows what it should be doing going forward. And again, this is illustrates when we ran a lot of the AI techniques, it turned out that recurring neural networks was the one that absolutely defined how we go forward in predictive analysis. Now, what we've done for example, in buildings in Shanghai, where we got old people's homes, 17 stories, we decreased the amount of alarms going off from 94 a month down to 19. And again, in student accommodation, where you got kids who've lived at home, been looked after the parents, and suddenly they're all there drinking too much, probably taking drugs, and definitely no idea how to cook and doing all the wrong things that 18, 19-year-olds do. That's where there's big risk, and we will be feeding into those student accommodations the data to sort of minimize these issues going off, to sort of be able to learn that you don't trigger an alarm every single time some silly 18-year-old goes and puts some tinfoil in the microwave. And again, it's looking at high-rise buildings here. So how do we go and know what's happening? How is that evacuating? Where are there issues? Where are there disabled people in the building? Why is there certain stairways that are not moving as quickly? And we get that data through all the sensor we have. Again, we've used in some buildings which are really high risk, where they have sensitive materials and can't use water. We need to know that everybody's out of that building before we start pumping in energy gas to suppress fires. This is very briefly, I'm going to show this last sort of slide. This is an evacuation we did in Manchester, where in real time we can tell who's disabled, what floor they're on, where your firefighters are, what's happening, all in real time. You're feeding into the Johannesburg Fire Service or the Fire Service of Kuwait exactly what they need to be looking at, what they need to focus on to minimize levels of risk and make sure everybody gets out of that building correctly. Last slide. Return on investment. I keep on banging out about this. The property sector is in a bit of a crisis. It's got huge energy cost increases. It's got huge costs in terms of running the buildings, and it's got massive issues with people working from home, etc. We reduced the insurance premiums by 8 to 12% of the building, energy costs by 21 to 24. We've actually hit 30% in one building. And this is where we are sitting down our building owners and say, look, let's look at the whole portfolio. Let's look at how the sensors go in, how we even lease out lights, for goodness sake, to show you how over a long-term period, you put that technology in, and immediately on day one, you are now saving money and your asset value goes right up. Because sadly, the property sector doesn't really care. You've got to go and show the dollars to these people. But once you do, they follow on. And again, how we're trying to grow the business globally is through partnerships with insurance companies, access control companies, and others in the market that have a vested interest. So we're just trying to facilitate the streaming of AI techniques in globally around the world. And again, behind me, we've got a lot of clients who've already delivered, people like the banking sector, Deloitte, major security companies around the world. So that's it from me today. I better stop because I know I'm on a clock and I'll be shouted at if I go a minute over. So look, lovely to talk to you all and happy to take any questions.
Paul, I was just going to say it's amazing how far you can go with this, just by managing things more efficiently and using artificial intelligence to do that. You've stated some numbers here in cost savings that are very impressive, and you know, if you keep, and the safety factor too, when you mentioned about especially the 18, 19-year-olds, whatever they do, it creates hazards. And if you can minimize some of that too, I think this is marvelous. You can start to see some other applications where this might lead into the future. So I think this is very impressive, very impressive.
Look, it's not just me. What I'm trying to do, and what I keep on trying to get through to technology companies, especially younger technology companies, that nobody has a magic bullet for anything, okay? And you just got to be really good at your little area, your niche, and then really engage with other technology companies. Look at what they're doing, and ask yourself: if I push my data into them, how much better would their system be? If I pull certain data from another company, how would it enhance mine? And if we also thinking in technology as just being part of a bigger picture here, that actually is an end client, that client that pays our bills. The more we collaborate together with really specialists in what I'm dealing with, I'm focusing on people who are specialists in automated BMS systems, smart lighting technologies, etc. And if we all work to sub-metering of energy, for example, which I don't have any idea about, well, as we engage and collaborate together, we really, 2 + 2 does equal 10 in this scenario. And what I'm trying to do globally is build around me a group of technology companies where there is no egos in the room, where we all realize the bigger picture is, better sustainability, better quality solutions for our clients, and just crack on with it. Because when I see what's happening globally, it breaks my heart that we're not taking sustainability anywhere near as serious as we should be. And I know Canada is not particularly great on that one either. I won't go beating you up today, okay?
Okay, David, are we about done with this session?
I think we are. Thank you very much. I think we're just a few minutes before the hour, so
Top of the hour, so we're good.
yes.
Okay, that was a very informative session. All the presentations here, I really learned a lot here. And I like to come to these conferences. I'm an academic, so I don't see necessarily what's happening in the real world. And when I hear how you're implementing some of this, and it's done very effectively to make things more efficient and cost savings, I think it's just marvelous. So keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share today.
Surely. Okay, I guess we'll move into the last session. I believe Joseph, I see him popping up here. So Joseph, you'll present first, and then Hoda, is Hoda here too? I hope so, because Hoda's got 2 sessions. So if we can,
we're going to start.
it's just about at the top.